Well, I start with a small story how I got my glasses, because as an Austrian startup, it's not so easy to get them. So I have a startup, and we are focusing on image recognition. And what we do is we scan things. So our technology is actually made for Google Glasses. So since I think 18 months, I desperately looked for Google Glasses and found nobody who could give me one, until I met Mario, who was willing to bring me a Google Glass to Austria. So from that point on, we tried to figure out if our technology can be used for Google Glasses. So the next 10 minutes, I will try to explain why I got them, because they're really expensive. So why I do spend so much time and effort in a technology which might not work at all, what I do, and what the product will look like I want to create. So first of all, I might need to talk a little bit about my startup. It's focused on image recognition, and what we do is we scan all sorts of things. We scan gas meters, we scan credit cards, we scan blood sugar meters, and all that information which is out there will be imported via the smartphone and somehow processed. For example, in the example I will show you, it's an app which is called My Sugar Companion, and people with diabetes have to measure their blood sugar value a couple of times a day, and they are struggling with putting those values in their diary, in their apps. So creating a technology which is able to import those values directly from the screen is that's just a benefit. So you can imagine that's just running on a smartphone, and you can imagine how awesome that would be if I don't need a smartphone. If I can do that with Google Glasses. The second use case I want to show you is one scanning gas meters. So imagine an engineer is somewhere in the basement and he needs to get that barcode from that meter or that value, and he can just use Google Glasses for that. So that's the basic point why I desperately looked for that technology, get my hands on, and get the experience about what I can achieve with that technology. So there's a good point, and there is not so good point. The first thing is that we were able to leverage ourselves and get the demo done. We can scan values with Google Glasses in a really easy and really basic form. But on the other hand, the technology of Google Glasses is still, from a performance point of view, not comparable with a smartphone like the iPhone. So if you have a look at our prototype from the Google Glass scanner, which I will show you. You can see the resolution is kind of bad, and it also don't recognize the values correctly all the time. So it's a really great proof of concept for us, because we know there is the possibility to do that. And since Google Glasses are, from the production point of view, already 2 years old, I'm really confident that the next version of Google Glasses will have the power to scan all sorts of things. And what we want to achieve is that wherever you are and whatever you look at, we recognize it and give you information about that. Or I don't know, you're in a restaurant looking at the menu, and the Google Glasses are, automatically recognizing all that stuff and giving you recommendations on your food you had this morning or whatever. But from the point of view now, I would like to show it to you on the stage here. I tried it already, but unfortunately, because of the power missing at the Google Glasses, I'm not able to do that in such a competitive environment with all those lights, but I'm happy to show you the prototype somewhere, maybe outside or whenever you have time after the event. So my experience with Google Glasses was actually really great. I could totally imagine wearing it all day. It's really strange and also really scary, but when I first got it, I was a little bit concerned about, I was really not sure if that technology will somehow emerge, but since I have it, I'm a total fan of it, because I really want to have an overhead display in my head. It sounds kind of weird, but I can totally imagine that people want that. And if you compare that with all those advantages it would have, especially in the B2B area, it's just, I'm really looking forward to see those things in MediaMarkt or wherever in Austria. Yeah, so that's pretty much about the technology and how what I did with the Google Glasses, and maybe we just.
As an Austrian, I have to, of course, ask you the question: what are the dangers and risks of Google Glasses?
Well,
where do you see the problems?
I think there is a really big difference between B2B and B2C. For example, if I see an engineer working in a basement, all his hands dirty, I think there's no better solution for him. And I think it will enhance his quality of life and work tremendously. The B2C point of view is kind of difficult to answer because, as you mentioned before, I think it's also a very social point of view. 10 years ago, people would have been really scared seeing somebody making pictures with their smartphones, and also companies got really scared and did a ban on mobile phones with cameras in facilities. So if you think about the change in the last couple of years, I think it will change and the mindset will change and people will open up with that technology.
I can tell you from my experience, because I also have some and tried them out and tried to wear them and use them as navigation system or be in a presentation and listen to a presentation, and the speaker told me, it's weird, I don't know if you're taking pictures of me or if you're doing anything with that, I just feel not uncomfortable with that. But I think we're just at the beginning, as you said. It may not be the big, at the moment, the big B2, the end customer tool. It may be really more the professional settings, yeah. And we have not yet learned how to use those things. If you just remember those devices, yeah, they came out in 2007. So when I got my first iPhone in 2007, I looked at it and said, okay, now I can take a phone call in a fancier way. Yeah, that's it. And only later I learned, oh, there's a navigation system, or there's I can make pictures. Yeah, the picture quality was bad, but this is the camera that I had with me. Or I take notes, or I check emails, and suddenly telephoning, taking calls became less and less important with that thing. Who of you is still using his phone for taking calls? Okay. In comparison to the other times that you spend on that, how much time do you really use it for calling in comparison to Facebooking, emailing, etc., texting? That's probably just a small percentage of that. Now with that here, we see an application like that, or we take a picture with that, but we say, maybe that's not the thing that we have. And when I speak to somebody from the First, the steelmaker, in Linz, and they say, oh, I see immediately what I could do there. Yeah? Instead of having an iPad holding on the production process to see the defects that are coming there, I just take this and I have my hands free and I get information on that thing. Or a doctor in Stanford, they can take this thing and they have them superimposed on the patient where and how to cut that by having a cross on that and getting information on top of that. So what we see here is just we're at the beginning of that thing. We don't know how to use that yet. And in 5 years, we will talking completely different, and you will think, how were we afraid of that stuff?
Exactly. And that's the way why I wanted to get my hands on it, because I'm really confident that in the next couple of years, especially if people like me develop apps which really make sense, then it's going to happen.
It's like, also I would really, if you want to get into the spirit of the Silicon Valley, a week after the iPad came out, all the cafes, the Café Venetian, was full with people with iPads. After a week, yeah? It's not like in Austria, Fritz Mulier tells this joke about that the first cars came up and this guy looked at that driving by, wir da wieder auch Kuma, yeah? We still have cars, yeah, and so on. And this is the same here. And you need to be, if you want to learn about that spirit, you also need to think, well, maybe it makes sense to buy, a 3D printer. Was this 3D printing conference just recently? Maybe I should buy one and spend €1,000 on that, even if I don't know yet what to do, or I buy this kind of stuff. Not only will you learn faster and earlier how it works, you also support these companies doing that stuff, the startups doing that, and not waiting until it is perfectly fine working. These startups may never have a chance to get up there. And that is a difference here between what we do here. So Lukas is living that kind of thing here as an Austrian in Austria, that he wants to get hold of these technologies right from the beginning. Thank you very much, Lukas.
Thanks so much. Yeah.